Here is Rick Smith.
So I've gotten a lot of response from the people saying, hey, good idea. Adopt a Republican. And rightly so. Look, I think Democrats do need to get out of D.C. I think they need to get it to where the people are and create some of these photo ops. I got an email from Brian. It says, I was in a town hall phone call with my Congressman, Emmanuel Cleaver. I heard all kinds of questions about DOGE. How are you going to protect Social Security and Medicare? He says he's a Democrat from the KC area. He had no answers to our questions. I hung up not feeling very confident about what he was saying. He said, I agree. The Democrats should go home. Get out of there. We'll see what happens. Thanks for what you do. And look, got a bunch of those. But I think you do have to go to Republican areas and get them worked up. Because when Republican politicians see their constituents getting all riled, for instance, don't know if you saw this over the weekend, and I can never say it right anyway, Arlene, Idaho. I always screw that up. Evidently, there was a town hall. The Republicans were holding a legislative town hall, and the talk turned toward the repeal, and some folks were not thrilled at the idea of repealing the Medicaid expansion because it helps poor people, helps working people. And one of the women, basically just was hogtied and ripped out of there, and it became this kind of spectacle that forces you to pay attention to what the issue is. Now you got the whatever I want to, and it was very, very Republican of them, and then accused the people who were being basically hogtied by the police as filibustering, and you need to have these moments where the passions of the people become crystal clear. And you need to create those environments. Like I said yesterday, I'm about 45 minutes from Lebanon, PA, where the guy famously said, "You get your government hands off my Medicare." A learning opportunity, because Medicare is a government program. And I see us in one of those moments to talk about what good government is. What we're seeing out of Trump and DOGE and Musk and all of them, this is not what good governance looks like. This isn't what running anything like a good business is like. This is chaos for the case of chaos. This is all about destroying something. And I look at this event in Idaho where, working people deserve a voice silenced by the Republicans there. And interestingly enough, is getting a little bit of play in, hey, maybe we do need to hold on to Medicaid. Maybe we do need to hold on to our government who does things to help working people. This, to me, again, I know it's hard to see the silver lining in this, but as I've been saying all along, they're going to overreach. They are going to do what they're inclined to do, and that's to fill their pockets too much. They're going to grasp for it all. And in that, we're going to suffer. And this is where I implore Democrats, go out there and hear those stories. Go out there and highlight those stories. Because understand, the Republicans are about ready to implode. Trump, I think James Carville is right. I think he's about to collapse because Republicans can't go home because they're going to meet these kind of town halls. They're going to meet these kind of events where people are going, hey, this is not what we wanted. You're making the economy worse. You're taking what few investments we liked away, and you're making it harder for us to buy eggs. I don't know. Again, eggs never higher, and inflation up. That's not what people voted for. So, like I said, the reality is let the Republicans give them enough rope to do what you do. Because, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, said on Monday that he wasn't planning on making any changes to the budget to make anyone happy. So that Medicaid cut that they've got in there, the idea that they're going to slash and burn Medicaid, that doesn't get fixed. And do you know who gets a lot of Medicaid dollars? Republican voters. So when you go home and you got, hey, get your government hands off my Medicaid, you're going to have a moment, Democrats. You're going to have an opportunity. The door will be open to then go in, highlight that situation, and have an idea of how to make it better, how to fix it. Because you can. Smart policy does win, but it's got to be heard. You've got to have the ability to go out there and sell it a little bit. And that comes with highlighting the fact that people are going to get screwed over. That all of these gimmicks that Doge Boy and his ferrets, all of the games that they're playing, eventually will turn and bite them in the behind. And we want that. Because they don't have your interest or my interest. They don't have our interests at heart. They don't care about you or me. They care about themselves. And this is a kleptocracy. They are robbing us blind while they're dividing us with their nonsense. Don't let them do it. That simple. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Miss any portion of the program, grab the podcast, freespeech.org for the video. And as always, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
AP News. Good morning, I'm Ed Donahue. The Vatican says Pope Francis met today in his hospital room with the Vatican Secretary of State and his deputy to approve new decrees for saints and call for a formal meeting to set the dates for their canonization. The 88-year-old Pope has been in Rome's Gemelli Hospital for 11 days with double pneumonia. Doctors are warning his prognosis is guarded. Among those praying outside the hospital for the Pope is Canadian Hoang Phuc Nguyen.
He is the leader of the Catholic Church all over the world. He is our father, and our responsibility to pray for him.
The Vatican's noon bulletin announced Francis has approved decrees for 5 people for beatification and 2 for canonization. A source tells the AP the Office of Personnel Management informed government agency leaders their workers were not required to respond by the midnight deadline set by Elon Musk to report on what they did at work last week or face firing. But Musk posted on his social media platform, subject to the discretion of the president, they will be given another chance. Failure to respond a second time will result in termination. Musk is not getting pushback from President Trump.
There was a lot of genius in sending it. We're trying to find out if people are working. And so we're sending a letter to people. Please tell us what you did last week. If people don't respond, it's very possible that there is no such person, or they're not working.
Its own data shows nearly 40% of the federal contracts the Trump administration claims to have canceled as part of its signature cost-cutting program aren't expected to save the government any money. An administration official tells the AP it made sense to cancel contracts that are seen as potential dead weight, even if the moves don't yield any savings. Palestinians who returned to their homes in Gaza after the ceasefire began are still struggling to find shelter, food, water, and other necessities. This is AP News. DoorDash will pay almost $17 million to settle claims it unfairly used customer tips to subsidize wages of drivers in New York.
Rather than let drivers keep the tips on top of their guaranteed pay. Attorney General Letitia James says that DoorDash also did not make it clear to customers that their tips were being used to offset worker wages. James says the company used the wage model between May 2017 and September 2019. DoorDash says it's happy to resolve the suit, but believes that DoorDash properly represented how Dashers were paid at that time, but noted that the old pay model is no longer in use. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
3 American women were found dead over the weekend in a beach resort in Belize. Officials were investigating the deaths as possible drug overdoses. Police reported no signs of forced entry or visible injuries and found snacks, liquids, vapes, and other electronic devices in the women's room. I'm Ed Donahue, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Skies will become mostly sunny here for today with a high in the mid-50s. Winds out of the northwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a chance for some rain here late, increasing clouds, a low near 35. Wednesday, a chance for rain, cloudy, high 52 degrees. Thursday, a slight chance for rain early on, partly sunny skies with a high around 45. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 39.
COVID-19 has cast a spotlight on the stark inequalities that drive poverty. The poorest communities in the U.S. and around the world are suffering the most. Oxfam believes we can put systems in place to protect health and livelihoods in the future if we work together with dignity and compassion. Learn how you can help offer safety to the most vulnerable and fight for a more resilient future at oxfamamerica.org. Sponsored by Oxfam America.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Tuesday morning, progressives, and welcome to the February 25th, 2025 edition of Choose Views, 773-763-9278. I was going to make some fun about 25th and 25th year, but there you go. See, I did it anyhow, Devin. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and iHeartRadio are where you can check us out. Email me at richard@WCPT820.com, and also catch me on Substack. I'll probably be dropping some knowledge the latter part of this week. My Substack page. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. There you can get Choose Views, short and long version, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, and, of course, Out Chicago, and our other great shows and interviews. Check out our heartlandsignal.com digital platform because, yes, lots of good stuff there. As we always say, this morning we've got some pretty informative clips, good clips that I want you guys to check out and we'll talk about as part of the show. And in the 7 o'clock hour, we will have Derek Black with us, who is a expert on education law and director of the University of South Carolina's Constitutional Law Center. Looking forward to talking with him this morning. And in the 7:30 hour, Rebecca Shee, who is a CEO of the American Business Immigration Coalition. Both of those folks will be with us today. And I'm looking forward to chatting with them because they are going to speak to areas that a lot of folks have concerns about, particularly when it comes to how we're dealing with immigration from a practical standpoint and how we're dealing with the laws that are part of our Constitution and what our Constitution's built on. So we'll have both of those experts and wonderful guests with us this morning, Derek Black and Rebecca Shee. So looking forward to chatting with them this morning. Excuse me, guys. Also, as always, make sure that you are paying attention to Joan, live, local, and progressive, as we always say, joined today by Benedictine University political science professor Joel Ostrow on the third anniversary of the war starting in Ukraine. I can't believe, Devin, it's been 3 years. Yesterday, I was thinking about that on the way home, and I went, 3 years? Good God. I mean, it is amazing how time goes by. But check out Joan today because she'll be talking with Professor Joel Ostrow. Brett Chase, environmental protection and public health reporter with the Chicago Sun-Times. Heartland Signal's Rich Eberwine with 3 stories you may have missed from our digital newsroom. And Reed McCollum, chair of the Democratic Party of DuPage County. Live, local, and progressive. Of course, weekdays 2 to 5 p.m. Central on WCPT, 8:20 a.m., the Heartland Signal website, and, of course, tune in. And then tonight from 5 to 7, Patty Vasquez will be joined by guest host Carmen Navarro Jercone. And their guests will include the recombination area's Dan Schaefer. I always have to slow down to say that because it's a lot of words. Their latest political news from Wisconsin. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. here on WCPT AM 820, Heartland Signal website, tune in, YouTube, and Facebook. Tomorrow's show here on Choose Views, I'll be joined Wednesday morning by Kurt Mullett, our good friend from Hoosier Blue 63, a.k.a. And then Dan Summons, who is a director of Blessings in a Backpack, will be with us tomorrow morning in the 7:30 hour. So looking forward to talking to both of those guys. And we're gonna have a guest with us from one of their corporate partners that'll be really good for you guys to tune in for. And of course, right now you can go over to our webpage and our show page to check out my podcast, where you can find the conversations with Timeline Theater's PJ Powers from yesterday, Public Citizens Elizabeth Beavers, Democratic strategist Mike Nellis, and a host of other great guests that we've had. The Choose Views featured interviews and full episodes. Podcasts are all available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, and Amazon. You can just search for Choose Views or get the links on my show page by visiting heartlandsignal.com and clicking on my picture right there on the forehead or, on the ear or someplace fun. I made Devin kind of snicker like, yeah, okay, all right, Richard. The show page is a great place to go where you can grab full episodes and featured interviews and then share those with folks that you that don't get up this early in the morning, and but they still want to hear what we're talking about, what I'm talking about. Had a great conversation with the lady on Saturday at the McHenry County Women's event, and she said, Richard, I listen to so many of the shows on WCPT. I don't always listen to you live in the morning because I'm still kind of, waking up. And I said, I get it and I understand. She said, but what I do, I go to the website and she said, I click on your picture. So I thought, all right, well, I can hang with that. So that's another way for you guys to check us out. Is just if you're not up this early, if you are, great. If you're not, go to the site, go to the Heartland Signal site, click on anybody's show, and then the cool thing about that is you can put that link in an email and send it to folks that you care. They will be able to pass it on to folks. Having a little bit of audio issues here. I don't know what's going on. I think it's just really low, Dev. We'll change it out. Is it that one? I know. And that's all inclusive, so we'll keep it going, guys. I can't hear anything, but I know you're there. And so Devin's doing what once again he always does, which is magic in the studios. And thanks for the shout outs yesterday from some of you who sent me text messages about our wonderful engineers and the work that they do here in the studio. No, didn't make any difference. It's weird. Oh, well. As long as you guys can hear me. If I can't hear myself, it doesn't really matter because that, it's that way sometimes. But so listen, guys, I was talking about the McHenry event, and one of the things I want to come back to is there are so many people. I spoke so much about the McHenry Democratic Women's event that I was able to attend on Saturday, and the thing that I want to share with you about not just that event, but the idea of organizing. And this is something that popped into my mind yesterday. The idea of organizing. wherever you are in the country, there is whether you're in a blue state or a red state, there is a Democratic women's group like the McHenry County Democratic Women's Trailblazers and Fundraisers group. There is a county person, or there's a leader in the county that you're in, like a Mary Mahadi and others. And if you are trying to figure out a way to get involved with the organization locally, and you know what I mean, I know who the leaders are and who the voices are. I will tell you, and this is something that I will tell you because I know how the leaders of the McHenry County Democratic Women's Board work. You can reach out to them. If you're someplace else in the country other than in Illinois, or if you're in Illinois and you're looking for a group like theirs to get involved with, reach out to them. They will tell you where to go. They will connect you with other Democratic voices in other parts of the country. You're down in South Carolina, you're in Texas. We've got some great followers in Arizona, in other parts of the country. Whether you're in a blue or red state, it doesn't matter, but you're looking for a group to get involved with. Reach out to the McHenry County Democratic Women. Just go to their website, and they will tell you that they will get you connected with other groups like theirs in other parts of the country. And that's the thing. I forgot to say this yesterday, and I apologize for that, guys, but that's an easy way to get involved with a different group or with a group in your community. You may not want to be part of when I say not part of a volunteer group, that may not be your thing. You want to get politically active. Doing other social things isn't your cup of tea, so to speak. You want to get politically active. This is how you do it. You find out who the County Democratic Women's Group is, or County Democratic, Asian women or Muslim women or, LGBTQ groups are. Use your local political group. And I'm telling you, because of how active these ladies are, they will direct you. They will help you find folks that are like them in the community that you live in. And it's an easy way. It's an easy way to partner with them. And you might be across the country. You may not here in the state of Illinois. But just check them out, and they'll help you out, okay? They're great. They're just a great group of people, a great group of ladies that get it done. So I forgot to say that, but here we go. We get it in now. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to bring you some Choose Views news for the morning. But the number, of course, is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we will be right back.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time. The next time you're out to dinner with friends, you can order the shrimp cocktail for the table. And maybe you'll realize it only comes with 4 shrimp after you've already given away 3, but that one shrimp will be so good. And if you switch and save hundreds, you could get shrimp all the time. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time. For shrimp. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
COVID-19 has cast a spotlight on the stark inequalities that drive poverty. The poorest communities in the U.S. and around the world are suffering the most. Oxfam believes we can put systems in place to protect health and livelihoods in the future if we work together with dignity and compassion. Learn how you can help offer safety to the most vulnerable and fight for a more resilient future at oxfamamerica.org. Sponsored by Oxfam America.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Good morning. You're waking up with Richard Chew.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
We're live and ready to hear from you. Text or call us now at 773-763-9278. Same number. Simple as that.
Let's get the conversation going
on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. So, you guys are going to laugh. I just have to have some fun for a second with this. So, Devin and I are here, trying to figure out what's going on with, volumes and headphones and all that good stuff. And we're moving stuff around during the break thinking, okay, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. And Devin's a magic man when it comes to this stuff. I mean, he's a mad scientist. He truly is. So he's like, okay, well, if I kick it hard enough, maybe it'll work better. Woke up the demons. And then, right, got to wake up the demons. But he was like, well, let's try this. And it worked. And the reason that it's funny is because if you're ever in a studio, you can see all the stuff that's there and all the different things that have to be, properly set. And one thing can be just tweaked off a little bit, and it can throw off a whole bunch of stuff. So that's why I call him the mad scientist. All right, guys, let's bring you up to speed a little bit on what's happening in the Choose Views news world. Apple is to hire 20,000 U.S. workers. I found this very interesting. Yesterday, they announced plans to hire 20,000 U.S. research and development workers over the next 4 years and produce artificial intelligence servers domestically. I guess that's a good thing. And the biggest U.S. commitment so far, the iPhone maker said it would spend $500 billion in the country, including a new manufacturing facility in Houston, as well as a Michigan Supplier Academy and extra spending on existing suppliers, according to the Wall Street Journal. So there you go. Apple's making a move in that space, and good on them. Large layoffs are hitting Starbucks. You've heard, we've talked about this over the last couple of weeks. Cafe vibes and revamped menus may not be enough for new CEO Brian Niccol to right the ship at Starbucks. The coffee chain said yesterday it will lay off 1,100 corporate employees and leave several hundred open positions unfilled in a bid to become a leaner, more focused company. Cafe staff, as well as those who work in Starbucks roasting, manufacturing, and distribution divisions, will not be affected by the layoffs. Okay, auto industry regulators are cutting jobs as well. Unfortunately, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration has eliminated 4% of its workforce as part of the Trump administration's sweeping job cuts across the federal government. Layoffs have raised concerns among road safety advocates who worry that reduced regulation could lead to more accidents. You think? The status of the agency's active investigations include 3 involving Tesla. I wonder why. All right, guys, New York City's toll conversation hits its financial target. The congestion pricing is proceeding as planned, according to New York City's mayor and their financial teams. The $9 toll on drivers into Manhattan's busiest areas brought in $48.6 million during the first month, in line with projections by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. The first program of its kind in the U.S. is under attack by the new administration, even as it aims to reduce traffic and improve air quality. So far, it's resulted in 10% fewer and faster moving vehicles. In other words, air quality and creating a cost tool, I guess they're a good thing, yo. Fed layoffs could weigh on spending. What does that mean? Wondering what recent job cuts at the federal government level will signify for the United States economy. The government employs approximately 2.4 million people, equal to about 1.5% of non-farm jobs, according to the Wall Street Journal. So far, it has cut about 30,000 jobs per J.P. Morgan Chase. Small figure compared with an average of 237,000 jobs added monthly recently. Yet experts won't do worry about the knockoff effects of as Americans grow more nervous about their jobs and cut back on spending. And to that end, the U.S. economy is reliant, maybe too much, on the rich. The U.S. economy is in a potentially precarious position right now, having become unusually, quote, reliant on rich Americans, according to the Wall Street Journal. As working and middle-class houses struggle to keep up with inflation, spending with the top 10% of earners has soared to account for almost 50% of all spending and nearly one-third of the gross domestic product. Experts worry that as stock and home values decline and the wealthy cut back, the economic impacts could be significant. Buyers are gaining power in the housing market. Housing market dynamics are tilting in favor of buyers in certain parts of the country. The shift comes as the supply of properties grow and would-be buyers face less competition as prices and mortgage rates remain elevated. As a result, the number of homes on the market has reached its highest point in 6 years, giving buyers more leverage On average, homes are selling for about 2% less than the asking price. So there you go. All right, guys, a couple of things that I thought would be interesting and important for you to know in the Choose Views news space. And of course, with that, the one thing I wanted to kind of curl back to is this New York City toll conversation. If it's going to improve air quality, Devin, and they're going to be able to put away a little bit more money in their coffers, I don't think that's a bad thing to have in any community. As long as if it improves air quality, if it improves traffic, and if there's an economic benefit, I think those three together can be beneficial to a community, particularly the size of New York and more specifically Manhattan. So there you go. There's a big story I want you guys to take. There's an article in ProPublica that I follow a lot of different news outlets and lots of different news sources. I'm reading a lot of different things that I try to provide you guys with updates that are relevant. And one of them is over at ProPublica. And one of the headline of the article, it's written by Stephen Engelberg, who is the editor-in-chief. And there's a really interesting article that he posted that I think you guys might want to check out. And it's called "When an Untrue Stat Shapes Federal Policy." And why am I suggesting this? Well, I want to be able to suggest you guys to some of the things that I read. I mentioned yesterday Rachel Bidekoffer's article, "Living History, Plenty of Parallels Between MAGA and the Nazis," and then Mark Elias's post on generational trauma. Two great pieces to read. And one for today is this article by, as I said, Stephen Engelberg over at ProPublica. And again, the title is "When an Untrue Stat Shapes Federal Policy." The Trump administration has been citing untrue stats as it targets federal workers. And so I'll go through the article a little bit just to shape some of the thoughts around it. As the Trump administration throws one more government agency into the wood chipper, there's a statistic that's been coming up that is deceiving. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this morning is that email from Musk to employees saying, "Tell us 5 things you did." First of all, Devin, tell me 5 things you did. Sounds like you're talking to children. Tell me what you did today, Johnny or Jane, in school. It harkens back to that. So there's a little bit of arrogance in that request in the first place. Tell me what you did 5 things you did last week. Well, I was laughing, thinking, well, if I had gotten that email, I would have told them the 5 things that I did, and they would have all been focused around, what did you do? Tell us 5 things that you did, Elon. That being said, this putting our federal agencies into the wood chipper is based on a statistic, or based on a percentage that has come starkly into question. And that statistic that they are using in terms of an untrue stat shaping federal policy is only 6% of federal employees are working full-time in their offices. That's the statistic that Trump and Musk are trying to use, and Carolyn Levitt keeps repeating over and over again about the efficiency of the government. So I'll give you some highlights of the article. You guys can read it yourself. But that percentage is untrue, and it's been researched out by a nonpartisan economist. So this is what I'm saying in this space is this percentage, like others that they're using. You know, we talked about the thing about condoms going to certain parts of the world, found to be inaccurate, highly inaccurate, in fact. And now this has been debunked in terms of only 6% of federal employees are working full-time in their offices. I think the key word there is full-time. And this came about because a swarm of fact-checkers have been debunking these contentions pointing out that records from the U.S. Agency in International Development showed that there's no such program for Gaza in terms of, the amount of worldwide, the amount of condoms that are being purchased for citizens in Gaza. And for that to actually be true, there'd have to be more than 1 billion condoms purchased, and for the number of males living in Gaza. So just a good article for you guys to check out, and I think that Stephen does a great job of highlighting why we have to be very, very mindful of, an untrue stat that gets repeated and gets picked up by news outlets and then repeated again and again. And suddenly it becomes part of the belief system for many people who are following some of these untrue numbers. So ProPublica's Stephen Engelberg has a really good article that you guys will, I think, appreciate, and it's called When an Untrue Stat Shapes Federal Policy. So make your way over there and take a peek and tell me what you think. All right. So when we talk about this this Musk crew and all of his people, I said yesterday that I would bring you a couple of clips that, in a short version, kind of highlight where they've come from, how they got to be where they are, and who this cabal really is. And I'm going to talk about that after this next break that we're going to take, both of the clips, and then we'll lean into the conversation there. But and I also want to take a moment and give a shout out to Joy Reid. I'm going to play a clip from her yesterday that I think is important. Joy's been nothing but good for so many folks in America when it comes to delivering the news, and we'll get into that when we come back from this next break. So just stay tuned for that. But yeah, I thought that the Stephen article made a good point about something that a lot of folks get turned off by, and that is when we hear these statistics, sometimes the statistics aren't connected to anything. And they aren't connected to anything because we see the numbers and then we get dragged into the weeds about talking about them without understanding. So how is this directly impacting us? And I think that right now, what so many people are starting to realize, and it's proven itself out with some of these town halls, is that not only are these numbers that they're throwing out to the public not accurate or could be viewed as lies, but the results that supposedly supposedly should be coming from Doge aren't really results that are worth the effort that's going into Doge. And the other comment, and this is one of the news pieces in terms of what's happening with different communities and with how federal employees are not just in Washington, D.C., and how they're in different, more than likely in different parts of the country, how those communities are starting to already see some contraction. So once again, the effort that's going in and the money that supposedly is being saved isn't really worth the effort that they're putting into this. But more importantly, if the local communities are being impacted by it, then we're seeing more and more folks that are starting to get a little bit concerned in how they are spending their money versus how they had been spending it prior to Trump being inaugurated. So the details are not the details, but the percentages and the numbers that they're using are not just inaccurate. They're actually misdirecting people and causing so many people to feel like they've got to start tightening their budgets in ways that they hadn't before. So we're going to keep talking about it, guys, because I know that so many people are concerned about how those numbers are really matching up. And hopefully we can continue to shed some light on that. But let's take a quick little break. When we come back, I want to keep my promise in talking about how these guys got here. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Are you tired of talking to yourself? We can get you an audience on the radio. You can produce and host your own radio show on one of our 2 stations. Please call 773-792-1121. That's 773-792-1121 and ask for Mark. Limited space available.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Skies will become mostly sunny here for today with a high in the mid-50s. Winds out of the northwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a chance for some rain here late, increasing clouds, a low near 35. Wednesday, a chance for rain, cloudy, high 52 degrees. Thursday, a slight chance for rain early on, partly sunny skies with a high around 45. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 41.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
It's Choose View with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose View, 773-763-9278. Yeah, as I was saying before we went to break, the data that they're using, and of course using incorrect data to create federal policy or any policy, is a recipe for disaster. And so I think that you guys can interpret the article yourself, but make your way over to check that out. All right, let's grab a couple quick calls, Devin. Let's go to Brett in Oklahoma. Brett, good morning. Welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for taking my call.
You're
How's
welcome.
it going?
Going well. Got a little bit of a little cotton mouth this morning. It feels like what I'm saying is like coming out in every now and again you get that. So I hear you. I feel great, but my vocals are like, hey, what the heck? What's going on? They're not talking to each other this morning.
Well, the good thing that's going on is poor Danny's poll numbers seem to be slipping a little bit.
Yeah, I know.
They're falling off a tall building like a cinder block.
Looks like hey, Brett, it looks like he spent a little bit of time in Russia, maybe too close to a window. His poll numbers, right. I should say.
Exactly. The other thing I heard yesterday, I believe it was on this station when I was walking my dog, was that the markets in China and in Europe outperformed us for the first time since the backside of COVID, I believe.
Yeah, I haven't done a deep dive. I took a very quick look at that, and there is some evidence to show that those markets are right now proportionately outperforming. And we took some hits we took some hits late last week, and yesterday wasn't the shiniest of days either. So it's definitely and I have an article that I had gone through about how his reboot is a disaster, as 59% say the economy is getting worse. Only 20% of Americans think the economy is excellent. 59% say that it's getting worse under Trump. That says a lot. Now, obviously, when it comes to polls and these sorts of again, going back to my thing about data, is where it comes from, who creates it, how, and who distributes it. But if that's happening, and I believe that there's some truth behind this, there's more truth behind this than fiction. That there's cause for concern.
Absolutely. Well, look, all these major corporations, they're all scaling back on the workers.
Yeah.
Why? Got to say something.
Yeah. And that's the problem with cut. The point I was making before the break is, and I said this last week, 83% of federal employees do not live and are not employed in the D.C. metropolitan area. That most people think that everybody that's not everybody, but federal workers are only in D.C. Well, you take the top 10 markets, blue or red states, and they're typically in the top 3-5 employers in any city in the country in terms of the top 10 markets. And then you get into some of the smaller communities, and you'd be surprised at how many federal employees work in Des Moines, Iowa. You know what I mean? And so that's where a lot of
all over the world, really, right? I mean, we got people across the globe, everywhere.
Absolutely.
For the government. Yeah, sure.
And the thing about this, in terms of making such radical, hardcore reductions of federal employees, is that I look at that as a national security concern, because part of the people that work for the federal government outside of the country are there to make sure that we are sustained and that we've got eyes on the things that we need to have our eyes on in different parts of the world.
There's 350 million people that live in this country, right? I mean, what's the end game of all of this? Are we going to run the whole country with 12 or 15 people? I mean, it's just asinine what they're doing, you know?
That's the attempt. That's the conversation that we're all hearing, is that the goal is to burn it down and then be able to input the people that they want to have in different places, because then they can control the levers of not anything other than the money that goes to those particular departments of the government. So, and businesses, unfortunately, are doing some things similar to it, which is equally disturbing to me. As much as I stay optimistic about this, companies making those kinds of adjustments is a little bit concerning, because they're taking away from the ability for the people who work in those businesses in those local communities to sustain themselves. So it's not rocket science at all, Brett.
It looks like Elon might be opening up about 50 or 60 new companies, huh?
Well, there is that concern that he's going to use these dollars to self-enrich and go out and purchase businesses that are failing. I've seen a handful of articles that are talking about that. So, yeah, Brett, we got, this is definitely that time where we have to keep our shoulders pulled back and make sure that we are connected and focused on what realities are out there that are coming our way, and then how we're going to push back on that. And so that's the assignment right now. It's not real difficult to know what the assignment is.
As a Teamster, I stand in solidarity, brother.
There you go. Brett, thank you so much for the call. Be safe out there.
Enjoy your day.
You too. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Richard.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, Devin, let's take another quick call. Let's go to Karen. Good morning, Karen. How you doing? Welcome.
Hello. Good morning, Richard. Yeah, it's not confusing. It shouldn't be confusing to people. Elon Musk is the demolition crew, and Donald Trump is just carrying out the wishes of his daddy, Vladimir Putin. And we can't forget the tie that Elon Musk has to Vladimir Putin as well. This is all to tear down our republic, our democracy, our way of life, our multiracial, multicultural citizenry. They're trying to do that, just like Khrushchev said, without firing a single shot.
Yep.
So, this is where we're at, and I think that we need to really start connecting the dots for people in our lives that maybe don't realize the point of all this. And are wondering, I
have. No. Yesterday, I played a clip two clips from the town halls that McCormick had, and the inspirational part of that, I guess you could say, is that there are people in communities that are fighting back, and they are fighting back from the right. And that, to me, is encouraging. I think that at the same time, we have to be mindful of the things that are happening structurally that we've got to fill the holes. We've got to put the bricks in to keep those structures in place. And I think awareness, and I didn't want to overdo you guys with data points this morning and statistics, but awareness to the fact that these things are happening is going to be and should be part of the motivation to plug the holes and keep things as stout as we can. In the meantime, you had an interesting comment, one side of the two observations about our House Minority Leader.
Yes. And to that point, and I appreciated Rachel last night pointing to these town halls where there are Republican voters that are calling out, and they know their stuff. These people are not showing up, completely in the dark. They have their facts straight. And so it is, it's very encouraging to see that. And also, by the same token, there are constituents showing up at their Democratic leadership town halls and, also raising, concerns that they're not reading the room, meeting the moment. And I, did go to see Hakeem Jeffries last week, and I was encouraged by what he said there. However, last night, his appearance on Rachel Maddow, it just seems like he's slipping right back into that, let's talk about policy, and completely ignoring the moment that we're in. This is a time for resistance. This is a time for obstruction. He was talking about the court cases, and yes, while it is good, that we have these court cases, we cannot rely only on the courts. We have to, every single one of us has to play our part. We as citizens have to go to these town halls. We as citizens have to pick up the phone and call our representatives and make sure they understand the moment that we're in and what we expect from them. And the courts need to do their part. But our representatives need to be very clear and hear us. Yeah. I'm not going to sit there and beat up on our Democrats. And, we are good people. We have good leadership. And under normal circumstances, everything that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are saying make perfect sense. But they're not understanding the situation that we're in, it seems. Like when they sit there and they talk about, this is what we want to deliver to the American people. Now, that is a wrap unless we can take this stuff back. You're never going to be able to do anything like that.
I think the statement has to
out.
Yeah, I think the statement has to be, here's what we need to do for the American. I think they both get it because they're right there and face forward in front of it. I think the articulation that they get it and what they're going to do is what so many people want to hear. So in addition, I won't say rather than saying, but in addition to saying we want to deliver these sorts of policies and benefits for the American people, I want to hear them say, and again, I think having them together at the same time on the same show or at the same press conference say, America, we get it for all of America, whether you're in a blue state or a red state, we get all of this and we understand what you're feeling, and equally important, we are going to bring the defiance and the heat and the pushback to this administration that so many of you want us to bring. I think American voters, certainly on the left, in the middle, and now some on the right, want to hear the minority leadership say that in front of or on an interview, whether it be Rachel, whether it be, another broadcast or during a press conference, and basically go on the We Get It tour from now on. Yes. And along with that is going to come policy that's going to benefit you. I think that's what we have to encourage them to talk about.
Yes.
Or to say it in that way.
Exactly. And the thing of it is, Richard, Rachel was teeing it up for him. She kept giving him well, yes, but, this is what we're hearing at these town halls. And they really, what do you say to people that want you to, be more forceful and be more, obstruct more and not go along? And he was not getting it. And it was really frustrating. And I think what you just said is absolutely, and Hakeem Jeffries said last week that he was going to be going to progressive media, alternative and independent media. So I hope he's listening to this.
I think
because what you said is so important, Richard. It is a yes and. It is yes. We understand what's going on. Understand that we do not have the majority legislatively, so we are limited in what we can do. But here are the things that we can and will do to stop this, to slow this down. They do not need one Democratic vote to help them pass their horrible. And, unfortunately, people are going to feel the pain. All of us, I'm going to feel the pain. You're going to feel the pain. We're all going to feel some pain here. But the thing of it is, this is a fight.
Yeah.
There's going to be pain in fights, but we need to make it very clear that we are on board with feeling the pain. If on the other side of this, we come out, we save our republic and our democracy.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
I think that so many people want to hear the very simple language. And if there's been one of the things that I've sort of learned and grasped as best I can recently is that Americans want to hear a simple, we get it, and here's what we're going to do, and here's how it's going to benefit you. We don't have the numbers right now, but we're plugged in, and we know that we can get the numbers back if we keep letting you know that we're plugged in and that we get it. And it's sort of that wash, rinse, and repeat way of saying, we get it, guys, and here's what we're doing right now. Here's what we're pushing back on. Here's why we're pushing back, and here's how it's going to benefit you. People want to hear that. So
they have to be very clear, because here's the thing, and exactly what you said. They need to put it out there, spell it out, tell them this is why we are not voting with it. Because they literally do not need any one of our votes.
They own it.
And we are going to send it. They own it. They have to own it. And make that very clear, because this is the thing. If the hurt starts happening, then you know that the right is going to start trying to spin it as though it's the Democrats' fault because they're not going along. So they have to be very strategic in how they message this and how they explain it and tell the stories to the American public.
Yeah.
Because we're paying attention. More people are paying attention now. So they have to take this opportunity. So,
good point. Anyway. Great point. All right. Well, listen, I appreciate the call, and I'm like you in this regard. Just say it. Let us know that you're there. We got your back, elected officials. Be brazen, be bold, and we will be there for you. So, all right, Karen.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good talking to you.
You too. Thanks for the call.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right.
Let's take a quick break. Devin, 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views, and of course our number is 773-763-9278. Thanks for Karen for that call, and thanks to Brett as well, calling us from Oklahoma. So some bright spots that I think you guys should be aware of. A judge did block. A federal judge has barred the Education Department and the Office of Professional Management, the government's massive HR department, from sharing sensitive information with Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. The continuing unauthorized disclosure of plaintiffs' sensitive personal information to DOJ affiliates is poses irreparable harm that money damages cannot rectify, according to U.S. District Judge Deborah Boardman, a Maryland-based appointee of President Joe Biden, who wrote yesterday in a 33-page ruling granting a 2-week restraining order. More judges will hopefully take that position. If you're a Republican judge, if you were a judge that's a conservative judge that was appointed by a Republican president, I'm going to put it to you like this. Imagine, Devin, you're a judge appointed by a Republican president. Your job is to look at what's right, what's fair, what's judicious. But imagine if your granddaughter, grandson who's in college, their information's being accessed by some other 19-year-old. You know what I mean? I mean, how wrong is that? So a federal judge should be willing to look at this and say, does it make sense? Sometimes, the law and what's lawful has to be based on what does this make sense? As obviously the law creates its own confines, and does it make sense? What is the value, the purpose of DOJ having access to information of other citizens? What's the purpose, the real purpose of that, Republicans? The real purpose. That's what I want you to answer from me. Any Republican out there, any MAGA, any person in the middle, frankly, tell me what's the benefit? That's what I want to know. So just had to point that out in terms of this judge blocking the access of it to information. And a 33-page ruling tells you something. 33-page ruling. All right. We're going to try to squeeze in a couple of clips that I want you guys to hear. So, since we've been talking about DOJ this morning and efficiencies, we have two clips that we'll just get to it that will help explain where these guys have come from. Let's first go to the PayPal Mafia.
Who are the PayPal Mafia, and how are they linked to apartheid-era South Africa?
Well, they're a group of men who are at the top, the founding of PayPal, all of whom in some way or other grew up in South Africa as children. You've got Musk himself, who was born in South Africa and lived there, went to high school there until he was 18. Musk's grandfather, Canadian grandfather, had been the head of the Canadian branch of a political movement in the 1930s called Technocracy Incorporated, which in essence wanted to scrap democracy in the United States and Canada and have technocrats rule the country, which might sound familiar. That becomes a de facto fascist party, is banned during the Second World War, and then the grandfather moves to apartheid South Africa, having had no connection to the place, in 1950 because he likes the sound of apartheid. And even Errol Musk says of the grandfather, he was an open neo-Nazi. You've got Peter Thiel, who was a co-founder with Musk of PayPal. Thiel was born in Germany, but brought to South Africa as a young child. His father was a mining engineer, lived in Johannesburg, and then moved to Southwest Africa, which was then a South African colony, is now Namibia. And he went to school in Swakopmund, which was notorious as probably the last place on the planet where people still openly greeted each other with Heil Hitler and celebrated Hitler's birthday. He went to a German school there before moving to the United States when he was 10 or 11. You've got David Sachs, who was born in Cape Town. He's big in PayPal and is now Trump's AI and crypto czar. He moved to Tennessee as a relatively young child, but grew up in the white South African diaspora there. And you've got Roelof Botha, the grandson of Pik Botha, the last foreign minister of apartheid South Africa. He was the acceptable face of apartheid. You'll remember he used to run around the United States trying to put a gloss on how they were reforming things and that everything was getting better. So you see those four key people at the top of PayPal, and they all have this, very intimate connection to South Africa.
So I've said this before, and I've been trying to find this clip. That was an interview that was done, Amy Goodman on, what's the name? Democracy Now! Thank you, Devin. Great interview. I can send that to you guys. And the other part of this is what we will call network state, and that's the sort of other part of this conversation in terms of how these sort of Doge boys have evolved and their view of how this country should be run. Let's go to the network state clip.
Last year, I started looking into something called the network state, which is an ideology of tech supremacy that holds that tech CEOs should use their wealth and power in the 21st century to basically take control of the world. They believe that nation states and democracies are an outdated software for the planet and that they should take over existing governments and hollow them out, or else start their own sovereign countries by taking territories around the world that they can buy with their vast wealth. As part of this ideology, they see a future in which nation states will collapse and democracies will be abandoned in favor of corporate dictatorships. And this is not something that I've dreamed up or found in a secret document. They write about this stuff in books. They talk about it on long podcasts. They make YouTube videos about it. You name it. They've been very, very loud about it, and no one was really taking them seriously.
To that point, who is Curtis Yarvin?
Curtis Jarvin is a software programmer from San Francisco who in the early 2000s started writing a weird blog under the name Minchus Moldbug. And in that blog, he outlined a lot of these ideas for getting rid of democracy in favor of a corporate monarch or dictator and running territories instead of by government, by corporation. And so Jarvin's idea is that Americans have to get over their dictator phobia, he said. And the way that we do that is by installing a CEO to be like the shadow president and to destroy American government from within through something he calls RAGE, R-A-G-E, retire all government employees. And that's very much what you see happening right now through D-O-G-E, Doge, destruction of government by Elon, in Washington as we speak.
So just to give you guys some highlight, I promised that yesterday. 2 clips that I can get to you, but more importantly, the question's been asked, where in the hell did these guys come from? And how did they get to this point? And who are they? And you've heard me, frankly, throw out the names of Doge and Bota and of course, Musk. And I want you guys to be a little bit more plugged in and informed as to not only what they're doing right now, but what their backgrounds are. I think it's critically important. I was talking with some friends about this weekend, about the importance of why history isn't, why we have to use history in a way to dig deeper, to see how we got to where we are. And the gentleman spoke to that. How we got here, frankly, we didn't pay attention to a lot of things. Some people didn't pay attention, others did, and we were yelling and screaming about the monsters under the bed, monsters in the closet, under the bed, and now in the sheets with you. We've been screaming about this, and I will tell you, candidly, a lot of folks didn't pay attention because they were like, oh, don't worry about that abortion thing, girls. It's going to be just fine. Don't worry about these civil rights things, black folks and other folks of color. It's going to be fine. Yet here we are. Same thing in this case. These guys, I want you to do the background, dig deeper to better understand that when I've said things about what their origins have been and where they were during their formative years, particularly from South Africa, you'll have a better understanding about why they've been able to ascend like they have. So make a promise to yourself to dig in on this, and I'll get the clips to you if you want them, so you've got some reference points. But I promise I'd bring that to you today. Guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have Derek Black, expert on education and law at the University of South Carolina's Constitutional Law Center. So looking forward to talking with him about what's going on and how we can fix some of the things that have been broken by these craven fools. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Check up on health with Chris Whitting. Are vitamins and supplements a wise choice for your health? Dr. Nancy Snyderman, longtime medical expert for ABC and NBC TV, says maybe yes, maybe no.
The problem is one company's brand doesn't necessarily have the same active ingredient as another's. And there are always supplements that are going to be the fad of the day. But remember that it wasn't that long ago that everyone was talking about vitamin C warding off colds, which we know isn't true, vitamin A, which in too big a doses can hurt you, and even things like ephedra and tryptophan, which were hot topics, are now off the market. So if you're going to consume something that comes from your health food store, be a smart consumer and make sure you have some guidance in that store from someone who knows what he or she is talking about.
With Checkup on Health, I'm Chris Whitting.
Imagine all the things you dream of under one roof. You're thinking of eBay. Fashion, collectibles, car parts, it's all there. Go find the thing that keeps you up at night. eBay. Things people love.
AP News. Good morning, I'm Ed Donahue. The Vatican says Pope Francis got some work done at a Rome hospital this morning. The AP's Charles De Ledesma reports this is the Pope's 11th day at Gemelli Hospital.
Pope Francis is continuing his recovery from pneumonia as the Vatican sets in motion a nightly marathon of prayers, and allies cheer him on from afar in hopes he will recover and get back to leading the Catholic Church. Through the night, the faithful held a sombre recitation of the Rosary Prayer in St. Peter's Square, a vigil that evokes the ones held in the same place when St. John Paul II was dying. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Elon Musk went on his social media site X to threaten to fire more government workers if his Department of Government Efficiency doesn't receive bullet points from them about what they did on the job last week. The threat came after the Office of Personnel Management directed agencies that responses to its email were optional. President Trump is backing Musk.
We have found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud so far, and we've just started. We're actually going to Fort Knox to see if the gold is there, because maybe somebody stole the gold. Tons of gold.
Elon Musk said on X, federal workers hate even the tiniest amount of accountability. Votes are expected in the House tonight on a Republican budget blueprint. President Trump has called it a big, beautiful bill with $4.5 trillion in tax breaks and $2 trillion in spending cuts. A magnitude 5.9 earthquake struck near the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. No damage has been reported and no tsunami warning was issued. A search has ended in New York. 3 people died. A 4th person is presumed dead after a boat sank off the coast of New York City. 2 others are hospitalized. This is AP News. Fabric retailer Joann is going out of business after more than 80 years.
And shuttering all locations in 49 states. That includes stores that dodged an earlier round of closings. The company cited sluggish consumer demand and inventory shortages. In January, the Ohio-based retailer filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy for the second time in a year. Financial services company GA Group, along with Joann's lenders, were selected as the winning bidders in an auction to acquire the company's assets and will begin winding down operations. The company says their website, Joann.com, and the mobile app will stay open as they conduct going-out-of-business sales. The stores were beloved by crafters, knitters, and parents looking for last-minute supplies for school projects. I'm Jennifer King.
Apple shareholders are expected to reject an attempt to pressure the company into scrapping its corporate programs designed to diversify the workforce. Some high-profile companies have retreated from diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. I'm Ed Donahue, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Skies will become mostly sunnier for today with a high in the mid-50s. Winds out of the northwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a chance for some rain here late, increasing clouds, a low near 35. Wednesday, a chance for rain, cloudy, high 52 degrees. Thursday, a slight chance for rain early on, partly sunny skies with a high around 45. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 37.
Hey progressives, this is Richard Chu, host of Chu's Views here on WCPT AM 820, 6 to 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. We have some real challenges in front of us as a country. Since the beginning of this show, I have always felt compelled to bring you the best that I've got. Now, there's always a why to doing whatever we do. So, as we go forward and face these challenges, know this, you listeners are my why. Because I want to make sure I do everything I can to provide a safe, open, forward-moving space that allows you to call, email, text, or just listen to a guy that wants to help you bring out your own championship qualities to truly make this place better for us all. Lofty goal, idealistic, maybe so. But that's my why, and I look forward to bringing you the best that I've got. This is Richard Chu. Stay tuned.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome to Chu's Views with Richard Chu.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Chu's Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chu.
And welcome back to the second hour of Chu's Views here on WCPT 773-763-9278. Catch us on all the socials, guys. We're out there making it easier for you to follow and to share information that we have, like we have over at our Heartland Signal digital platform. Make your way there. Great articles and posts that you guys can appreciate and share with those who you care about. And so to that end, right now, Marionette, this is a great article you guys have got to check out. We've got some audio to this that we'll probably get to you tomorrow. But Marionette Miller Meeks defends the cuts to be made right there. And by the way, she is a representative in Iowa. And she seems to have gone all in on the Department of Government Efficiency, yanking and pulling and getting rid of benefits and tools that will help right there at her own state. So, cutting is okay with her. It wasn't at one point, but now her commentary is that this claim that it's going to cut waste and fraud is going to actually cut into the budget through the National Institute of Health that will directly impact medical research that at the University of Iowa. These people are frustrating as heck, and I've got so many other words to say. But my point is, make your way over to Heartland Signal. It's a great article, and it's one that will help you kind of piece together some of these dotted lines that we talk about. And kudos to my man Rich Eberwine for that post that we have there. Also, we have this clip that we may get to today. If not, we'll get to it tomorrow. During a district town hall, U.S. Representative Scott Fitzgerald from Wisconsin was jeered by constituents for his support of Musk's gutting federal programs, despite having no oversight of his activities. And here's one of them. I've certainly never been briefed about Doge. Then you should turn in your keys and walk away from Congress, because part of your job from an oversight standpoint is to do just that. I think that's what's frustrating so many people at these town halls. What the hell are you doing? If an efficient department or group, then you should at least be plugged in daily to what they're doing. How about asking Elon Musk to tell us the 5 things that he did last week? So there you go, guys. Make your way over to heartlandsignal.com and check out our digital platform with all the great articles that have been posted by some of our wonderful people. And Rich is right on point all the time. So speaking of someone being on point, Derek Black is an expert, and I don't use that word lightly when it comes to education law, and a director of the University of Southern California's Constitutional Law Center. We have the fortunate opportunity to have him with us this morning to talk about all things legal, and particularly and specifically when it comes to education and education law. Good morning, Derek, and welcome to Choose Views.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. You have been ringing the bell for a while now about the dangers of tearing down our public education in America. And obviously, there are certain communities that are going to be impacted by that more than others. But in general, it's a bad beat for us to take that position without a fight. And you've had some recent articles, you've made some recent interviews, but tell us a little bit first about the work that you do at the University of Southern California. I'm sorry, I know that happens all the time. The University of South Carolina, the other USC. I know that probably happens all the time, but tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing when it comes to education law at the University of South Carolina.
Yeah, well, no worries. It happens. Even the university president did it once, although he didn't keep his job for too long after he did it.
Are you serious?
Well, he'd had a little bit. I shouldn't be. So anyway, all right. Anyway, yeah. So I've been involved in school funding litigation, school segregation litigation, all this stuff. But right now I'm an expert in an Ohio voucher case, a desegregation case in Minnesota, another case in Tennessee. So there's just so much going on right now in terms of trying to secure education equality, trying to push back on those that are privatizing education. It's keeping we're stretched thin. I guess that's the best way to put it. Yeah.
So right now, I mean, you talked about this back to the states, Trump's plan to go against the country's long history of federal support for schools. Shed a little bit of light on that and what you're seeing as hugely problematic there.
Well, I mean, there's so many ways to come at this. I mean, the first one is this sort of idea that this is a modern invention, that the federal government doesn't have an important role. And, as I've been writing and researching, I mean, the federal role in education goes back to before we have a United States Constitution. One of our 4 major founding documents, Northwest Ordinances, they determined that all the remainder of the land in the United States would be carved up into little squares. Each town would have 32 lots, and the center lot would be reserved, the 16th lot for public schools. 9 of the outer lying lots reserved to generate resources, right? So this is 250 years old. And then the first Department of Education itself comes into, I would say, our second birth of freedom in the United States after the Civil War. Congress establishes the Department of Education to help ensure education in the South, which didn't have it before, and to also help bring millions of enslaved people into democracy, but also to, get things moving in the right direction elsewhere. And so I think the first point to understand is the federal government has actually been a driver of education opportunity and equality across history. It's not some, random late 1970s thought about, helping the teachers unions get what they want. And that's narrative number one. Number two, and I'll stop, and it goes what you said earlier about Iowa. I mean, this money is spread across needy children across the nation. Children of low income, children with disabilities. Those are sort of the 2 big pieces. And then we have prohibitions on, sex discrimination. I don't think those are things that Americans want to give up. Lots of families of all economic statuses have students with disability. And when we talk about poverty, to be quite honest, the states that are most reliant on our Title I dollars are not, our blue states, so to speak. There are red states. Massachusetts could walk away from federal dollars tomorrow if it wants to. Alabama and Mississippi cannot.
That is a quote that I am not going to mess up by over-talking it. Can you repeat that, please, sir?
Massachusetts could walk away from federal school dollars tomorrow. Alabama and Mississippi cannot.
Tell us why.
Well, the way schools are funded are based upon local property taxes. And so the more money you have, the more wealth you have, the more you can generate. And when you look at the numbers, I mean, this is kind of shocking to people as well. If you look at what percentage of money that Mississippi spends on public education, it's actually a higher percentage than Massachusetts, because Massachusetts has got resources. They don't have to stretch to fund their education system. But a lot of our red states do, and so they're heavily dependent on federal dollars to make ends meet, right? And I think regular people know what I mean by that. Well, that's the situation in places like Mississippi, Oklahoma, Alabama, Louisiana. But, in a lot of our northern states, that's not the case.
So they're generating revenue, the other states, we'll just say it this way, blue versus red, to make the conversation point. Those states are generating a higher amount of revenue proportionate to the citizens. And as a result, the educational dollars that would come from the federal government don't have to be as flush because there are other sources that, to your point, don't stretch an already deprived, if you will, economic state. Fair statement?
That's right. Yeah, and I want to, be clear and fair. I mean, at the same time, we have states like Wyoming, rural, state, very low wealth. I mean, they've got a lot of resources per pupil there, and they spend them. So it's not just a blue-red state. At the same time, California, I don't understand all the financial dynamics in California, but, it's a wealthy state, but it actually spends a pretty small amount on public education. So, but, California is in a position to make up the difference. I don't know whether politically they would do that, but they are in a fiscal position to make up the difference if they had to.
Right, and I think that's the key, if they had to, but because they don't, they have a strong public education system. I mean, Ronald Reagan is known for tearing down the collegiate the collegiate educational system and the funding that was there, and tried to make that part of our national. I mean, I think that, and you know better than many, a lot of the federal attack started with Reagan, or certainly can be wound back to when Reagan came into office, what he wanted to do to affect public education on a national level, and it hasn't stopped. I mean, when the Republicans get into office, they certainly have pushed hard to reduce the amount of federal funding that goes out to public education.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Derek. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, there's a dirty history here as well that it's not as obvious to a lot of folks. But, and of course, the Democratic Party had a long, history of racism, but, it changed and became more inclusive of black folks and other people of color. But the short story is, Richard Nixon, when he lost his first presidential election, he determined he was never going to lose again. I won't use the pejoratives, but, he used some pejoratives. He wasn't going to get, I guess, out-Dixied again, maybe a nicer way of putting it. And so he after the Democrats had swept the South during JFK's term, he comes back and runs on ending school desegregation, right? And so that ends up being, and he starts his campaign, I think it was in Mississippi, that ends up, and gets the endorsement of Strom Thurmond. That ends up being his pathway to the White House. Now, by the time Reagan rolls around, public, there's a different, level of what's tolerated in public conversation, but, Reagan was tapping those same sentiments when he ran for president. He said, let's block grant all the money and send it back to the states. He was tapping into that vibe that Nixon had been explicit about, which is, let's let these Southern segregationists do whatever the heck they want to, right? And so when Trump says, let's let the states, decide education, let me be crystal clear on curriculum, on teacher quality, on all these issues, states decide all of that right now. The federal government is prohibited by law from messing with curriculum. So when you say return it to the states, what you really mean is returning anti-discrimination decisions to the state, because all that other stuff is already there.
And by virtue of that, and thank you for clarifying that, this is a conversation that we will dig in deeper and have you back on in the future, because so many people miss that piece right there. Those last 10 sentences are gold, because that's what a lot of people don't understand in terms of the integration between states' management of education versus federal. And is it by law, and then this is a question that just popped into my head when you were talking about this, Derek, by the sheer fact that the Trump administration is trying to change the federal funding mechanism by getting rid of the Department of Education, isn't that in and of itself not constitutional, because of the federal law is not allowing for the government to do just that thing? I mean, I'm trying not to put the cart before the horse, but help us kind of ferret that out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, with all these issues, when we're talking about the federal budget, when we're talking about these departments, like the budget and the departments and their responsibilities are created by law, signed by a majority of the House and the Senate, and then signed by the president. Their law, firm law, decades old. And the president's job, although most people don't, fully appreciate it, is to execute the laws as written. And so eliminating something that you're charged with running can in no way be characterized as executing the law. The president does not have the authority to take down departments that all three branches of government have sanctioned and established, right? But that is what, that's what he's trying to do. And to be fair, I think, some of the more recent executive orders implicitly acknowledge that there are limits to the president's power. So instead of destroying departments, they're trying to scare people into going home, right? Because they know they can't just take it down all by themselves. But maybe they can have a Department of Education with nobody who comes to work, and that would be the same as taking it down. And that's really sad that we're sort of using these corporate, aggressive, takeover tactics that really aren't appropriate for public institutions that are governed by law.
I look at it like building, and thank you again for breaking that down. I mean, it's guys, listen, here we have an expert on education and law, but we also have someone that has the ability to break down a complicated topic so that we understand the importance of education. Here is a person who is an educator or educated that can break down the importance of education in America. How wonderful it is that we have the Derek Blacks of the world that can do that, because what he just said is they're taking a business structural idea and trying to lay it over onto our government's operational system, and it doesn't work. They're truly oil and water, because there's laws that create the ability for the government to function. Businesses don't have laws that create that are designed to create their functionality. So you can't really merge the two when it comes to things that were enacted by Congress, and that's what a lot of people don't get when they think that, we can just write an executive order and this is done.
Well, and the thing that, worries and frustrates me, I was chatting with someone the other day, and they're kind of a little bit like, well, government waste, and we need a little bit of this and that. And I said, well, I didn't say to the person at that moment, it was a friend, but I said, look, if Twitter goes out of business, that's fine. Some people are going to lose their jobs. They'll move on somewhere else. That was part of the deal. We understand that businesses come and go, so they can take risks. But when we're talking about our children's lunch, right, low-income children's lunch, when we're talking about special services for students with disability, when we're talking about teachers showing up, and being there for our kids, 5 days a week, those are not things that we can take risks with breaking, because, right, it's not okay if the school doesn't show up. It's not okay if there's not lunch, right? And so I think that's the thing that some people miss, that, government waste. Well, you know what? Probably it does, but that's a function that we have to tolerate for the guarantee that government will be here when the you-know-what hits the fan. That's when COVID hits, right, and we don't have tax dollars to keep our schools going, and the federal government has to step in, right, to help our schools transition. With all the problems we had in COVID and all the learning loss, we moved forward with education. We tried as best we could. And so I think that's the thing, is that government is just fundamentally different and has to be fundamentally different, because we cannot afford for government to fail.
Not at all. And on any level, that's got to be the case. You have this wonderful book with a great title. It's called Dangerous Learning, The South's Long War on Black Literacy. Talk a little bit about your book. Talk a little bit about the importance of it when it comes to education.
Yeah, I started this book as a passion project. It grew out of another book, A Schoolhouse Burning. It was about the long history of the right to education. But what I found and sort of wrote about is how access to literacy has been the dividing line for freedom for Black people since 1820, right? That under the worst of conditions, right? There were schools that were open and Black people were learning on their own, but then they were shut down, and it really became that line between freedom and slavery, and it changed people's lives mentally. Some of them got to actual freedom through it. But then that same freedom line moves after the Civil War, right, which is how do we become citizens? And so, again, the public education system becomes freedom's line. And then, fast forward to Brown versus Board of Education, because we certainly didn't fix everything with the Civil War. And again, public education is the starting point for creating citizenship and equality for Black people. Well, the other side of that story is that there has been a push against that freedom every time, right? That we had the criminalization of Black literacy during slavery. We had Jim Crow almost immediately after we established public education in the South. And then, we talked a little about Reagan and Nixon. We had the backlash to Brown versus Board of Education that flatlined educational equality for a good 4 or 5 decades. Now, in 2020, we began to revisit our past failures, right, after the death of George Floyd and others, and say maybe we need to think a little bit harder about how we teach history, how we include people in the classroom, et cetera, et cetera. And it was only about 12 to 18 months after that we saw another assault on public education. So, it's a long history of this sort of push and pull over, the right to education, the right to literacy for Black people, but also its importance to overall democracy. And so it's not just an issue for Black and brown children. It's an issue for white children, too, and those rural disadvantaged places that I was referencing earlier.
Absolutely. And Derek, I'm so glad you put that last piece on in terms of rural white kids. Little white boys and white girls are going to suffer the same fate. And that's what, going back to the piece about what's happening in Iowa, is so critically important, because Iowa's population is not predominantly black or Hispanic or Muslim or Canadian or, whatever else. It's predominantly white. So this is where this institutional teardown is not, it starts in a particular group, but it's reaching other people. And it leads me to kind of sort of the last question, but it's my big why. Why do you think, why do you feel this is happening? And just if you can expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, and on this, we've seen this movement to tear down education flounder in certain respects over the last couple of decades. But what happened is that multiple constituents have come together at the same time. You first had religious groups who, for good or bad, wanted a piece of the public pie so that they could support religious education rather than public. So that never got anywhere. They tried to co-opt the black community into going along with that, but they remembered that vouchers came out of school resistance to school integration, and so didn't get very far. But then you had this other group that are just sort of like anti-government, right? You had the Koch brothers, for instance. If you're anti-government at the federal level, you're anti-Social Security, anti-Medicare, Medicaid. If you're anti-government at the local level, you're anti-public education. That's where the lion's share of resources go. So some of this is just anti-tax, right? Anti-government, get folks off the dollar. And then during COVID, right, there was some more anti-government that spread more widely over frustration, which, over closures and the economy and all of that. But then the culture war, and that's what really put us over the top. When President Trump lost his last election, right, and we saw an attack on the Capitol, in the months that followed that, sort of vouchers became a litmus test on, are you with this or against this? Are you pro-government or anti-government? And it just became this new phenomenon where you had religion, anti-tax, and the culture war coming together, and it supercharged a movement that really hadn't gotten much purchase before then. And then you have, I guess, the final group that are just sycophants, that don't really have a policy or agenda other than to be in the in crowd of power, and they're just following this path.
Wow. That's profound, man. I thank you so much for breaking it down. And this is where history and education helps us out, folks. When you have someone like Derek Black that can break these complicated things down and give a historical perspective as to how we got here. I'm always intrigued when we can do that, Derek, because it does help us go, damn, I didn't realize that, and then be able to try to do something with it. So thank you for being with us in this short amount of time. We definitely would love to invite you back and talk more about this from a historical perspective, because I think a lot of times when people have that, they can then go, okay, I better understand how we got to where we are today. So appreciate you being with us this morning. We will definitely have you back on the show when you've got some time and we can talk more about this in even greater depth. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great. Look forward to it.
Thank you for being with us this morning. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Derek Black, he is the expert on education law and director of the University of South Carolina's Constitutional Law Center, not the University of Southern California. Thank you, Derek, for being with us this morning. Check out his book, Dangerous Learning, The South's Long War on Black Literacy. Take a quick break, guys. 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
Do you keep putting off that much-needed dental work? You know, that back molar that zings whenever you drink something cold, or that old loose crown that migrates up and down like a yo-yo every time you eat? This is Dr. Anna Pellick from Total Dentistry and Palatine, and procrastination keeps me very busy. A simple filling becomes a root canal, or that chipped tooth breaks again and now it becomes a bridge or an implant. Time is the enemy, and dental problems don't get better on their own. So if you procrastinate because of anxiety, we have solutions. If you procrastinate because of cost, We work with insurance plans and have easy payment options. And if you procrastinate because you're too busy, we have early 6 a.m. appointments, late evening, and Saturday appointments, and even one-day treatment. So now that I've eliminated most excuses for not seeing us, stop procrastinating and join the many who tell us, why did I ever wait so long? So give us a call at 847-358-2477 or visit us at totaldentistry.org. Total Dentistry, a general dental practice like no other.
The Democratic Party of DuPage County is celebrating 50 years with a gala event on Sunday, March 2nd. Make your plans to attend this very special event at Bobac's Signature Events in Woodridge. The program begins at 5:30 p.m. The list of speakers includes Governor J.B. Pritzker, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, and several members of Congress. The keynote speaker will be Anderson Clayton, who is one of the rising stars of the Democratic Party. Anderson was elected chair of the Democratic Party of North Carolina at the age of 23. The DuPage Dems Gala funds efforts to defeat extremists in DuPage County and fight back against Donald Trump. Get your tickets now. It's the Democratic Party of DuPage County 50th Anniversary Gala, Sunday, March 2nd at Bobac's Signature Events in Woodridge. Buy your tickets now before it sells out. For tickets, visit DuPageDemocrats.com. That's DuPageDemocrats.com.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Skies will become mostly sunny here for today with a high in the mid-50s. Winds out of the northwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a chance for some rain here late, increasing clouds, a low near 35. Wednesday, a chance for rain, cloudy, high 52 degrees. Thursday, a slight chance for rain early on, partly sunny skies with a high around 45. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 39.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. I see you guys on hold. We will get to you after our next interview segment. Great to have Derek with us this morning, and the segment will be up on my page, on my show page. If you go to heartlandsignal.com, you'll be able to have that interview later this morning. So maybe give it till around noon when our engineers and producers get it up. Great interview, great subject, great topic that you guys can use to share with folks when they want to push back or just for your own edification. So thanks, Derek, for being with us. We're keeping it moving, guys. As I said at the top of the show today, we were going to have two great guests. And now, as we talk about another very important subject matter, which is that of immigration, we are fortunate to have with us this morning the CEO at the American Business Immigration Coalition, none other than Rebecca Shih. Good morning, Rebecca, and welcome to Choose Views. How are you?
Hi there.
Hey, how are you this morning?
Good morning. Very good. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Excellent. All right. So one of the things that I mean, this is probably the biggest, certainly one of the top two conversations right now, and that's this conversation around deportation, specifically and more broadly immigration. And you run one of the most important organizations in the country right now, that being the American Business Immigration Coalition. Can you take a couple of minutes and tell us about the organization, how it was crafted and created, and what some of the objectives are?
Sure. So the American Business Immigration Coalition, we are a bipartisan group of 1,700 employers and CEOs from around the country, representing agriculture, manufacturing, healthcare, technology, and our purpose is to make sure that we finally fix our broken immigration system that's been outdated, for the last 40 years. So we think this is a great opportunity this year to finally get to some bipartisan solutions that can both secure the border and also secure America's workforce.
So right now, one of the biggest pushes for deportation is taking place, taking place in some of America's largest cities like Chicago and New York and Boston, most recently in terms of where Tom Homan has decided to direct his ire. Let's talk about why that is happening in your observation and experience, why that's happening in these big metropolitan areas.
Well, first, the president won last November overwhelmingly on the issue of immigration and border security. And so the president and his administration are taking seriously in terms of enforcing the law. But like the border czar Tom Homan has said, look, they are focused, and we hope they continue to focus on violent criminals, people who are a danger, cartels to our communities. Nobody wants these people in our communities. And so, but as well, we know the incredible contribution that immigrants make to our healthcare, manufacturing, hospitality, agriculture. And we won't have food on the table if it were for our hardworking immigrant farm workers. And so we believe there's an opportunity to get both done, to get legal pathways for our hardworking, law-abiding immigrants, as well as securing the border.
So to that point about the contributions, I mean, right now, as it relates to the food chain in America, we know for a fact that without the contributions of immigrants, particularly in this sort of farm food area or chain, that you're right. But talk a little bit more about the numbers. You know, we take away X number of people that are documented or undocumented, but not lawbreakers. Because I think that's where we get confused, is lawbreakers, undocumented, documented. At the end of the day, it seems as though that the administration is taking a broad brush stroke rather than really going after the folks that have been causing any of the trouble. And that, from a food chain standpoint, is problematic to our economy. Talk about that if you can.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, our agriculture industry is a $3.5 trillion industry. 72% of the farm workforce are foreign-born, are immigrants who are day in, day out picking our tomatoes, lettuce, milking cows at 3 a.m., and cows needs to be milked 3 to 5 times a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so that's who's bringing food on our table at an affordable and quality price. So, I mean, we have a choice here. We either import our labor or we import our food. And I don't think we want to do that, because food security is national security. We want to make sure that our food is domestically grown, controlled, vetted, and as well as affordable. And so if, to your point, we remove a significant portion of our agricultural labor workforce, our hardworking farmers, I mean, do you want to pay $30 per head of lettuce at the grocery store? Or, $20 carton of milk? I mean, I don't think any of us want to do that.
Well, and I think right now, many of the people that are, whether this is food security, national security are not partisan issues. I have a show on a progressive radio station, and so I unapologetically lean in the progressive direction. However, this is not an issue that is a solely progressive issue. This is an American issue. This is an issue that, if improperly managed, could destroy an important part of a segment of our economy, which would then have a domino effect on other parts of our economy. In other words, if people can't pay for food because of the fact that we mismanaged not just immigration, but the people who are managing our food systems, that will have a destructive impact on the economy. And that's the other side of this conversation around immigration that people aren't really having, that are saying, let's deport everybody. It's insane to go down that path.
100%. I mean, if you look at, in addition to our food supply chain, if you look at housing, construction, healthcare, I mean, these are sectors that are already experiencing a deep labor shortage. And so if you remove, construction and housing, 30 to 40% of the current workforce are immigrants who are working productive healthcare. We have 25 to 40% of from elderly care assistance workers to our physicians and nurses are immigrants, are foreign-born. And so if you remove this population, that drives up prices for everyday Americans. Everybody has parents, or you're going to age yourself. And so, who's going to take care of you? Who's going to, pay for, $18,000 more a year for elderly care? Or, we know we're already having a housing crisis in terms of, rents and mortgages. So both the supply is going to go down and the prices are going to go up. So, this, to your point, like this economy is incredibly integrated, and immigrants are integrated into our workforce. And, we have 1.7 million open jobs currently. And so, removing people who are working, law-abiding, and productive in any of these sectors will be disruptive, not just to immigrants, right, but to everyday Americans.
And that goes back to something I wanted to ask you. I didn't realize the breadth of your coalition being 1,700 members. That's a combination of CEOs, current active CEOs, retired. I presume some retired folks that are also part of the organization. But talk about how you've been able to pull them together, because they come from different backgrounds and different mindsets and experiences. How you've been able to kind of get all that brain trust to move in a common direction to help solve, frankly, probably one or two largest issues in the country.
Well, employers, just like everyday Americans, are just sick and tired and frustrated by our broken immigration system. I mean, I think this was clearly demonstrated last November, and, with the reelection of President Trump. Voters sent a clear message that, look, we have to fix this system. We need a secure and orderly and safe border, and we need to figure out how we update this immigration system so that it reflects a 2025 economy rather than a 1986 economy. And it's not working, and employers as well as everyday Americans are demanding solutions.
So right now, what I will question is the voting was in part due to that in terms of immigration, and large numbers of people voted in that way or said that that was their driving force. However, it's not. I don't see, other than deportation and deporting people as any part of the current administration's plan. I don't see anything that's structurally going to. It's sort of like one campaign promise to deport people is not fixing the issue, which by deporting people would deplete the folks that need to be there to do the work. And so there's a little bit of bait and switch that's clearly taken place and frustrated many Americans. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I think the Americans gave a clear distinction. So the securing the border, yes. Removing violent, dangerous people from their communities and neighborhoods, yes. But for people who are here working, law-abiding, which we know are the majority of immigrants, that have their heads down, many of them working 2 to 3 jobs. The majority of the 11 million have been here for at least 15 years. And so for those people, exit polls and polling, including last week's Ipsos poll, with over 2,600 American voters, show that, hey, if you've been here for 10, 15 years, working, paying taxes, let's give you a legal pathway. So I think Americans are very smart. They can make the distinction, and it's time for Congress and the administration to do as well. And, and we believe there is a great opportunity, because the president did run on both immigration as well as bring down the costs, so inflation. And both are, intimately connected. Without a doubt.
However, he had an opportunity to stay out of the conversation that was a bill that Congress, both chambers of Congress, were ready to push forward for in the late summer, and he blocked it, which actually would have impacted the border security issue. That's a fact. And because of that, it frankly delayed what would have been beneficial to the conversation about illegal folks, quote, being here. And that's where I say that there is the bait and switch, because he got in the middle of that conversation, which was highly identified as problematic. And then we still haven't seen that, other than just deporting people, some of which are legally or should be here. They're undocumented, but they're not criminals. There's a little bit of hypocrisy there. I mean, you can't get away from that, Rebecca. That's a fact.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. Senator Langford from Red, Oklahoma was the one that championed the border security bill, with a blessing from then Leader McConnell, support from the caucus to negotiate with Democrats. And with Schumer's full support, so and then President Trump weighed in, and the whole thing came, right. So you're 100% correct about the facts and history, and I mean, and that's been the theme of immigration reform over the last 40 years, and for both sides, right. The Democrats have had trifectas as well, and have said and messaged well on this issue, the Dreamers, path to citizenship, and when things get down to the wire, right, it fails. So I think that has culminated in the anger among Americans and businesses, small businesses in particular, and why we saw this election last November. And so all to say is we're here. The system is deeply broken. People are angry. And a enforcement-only approach, a mass deportation-only approach, is going to drive up prices and, potentially even drop the stock market by 4 to 6%, and as well as the GDP. And so, we got to get to a solution. We can't get to a place where we're massively removing productive, law-abiding people and just wait for the prices to hit everybody, every American in their pocketbooks. So that's why, at the end of March, our employers, our members are going to be in Washington, D.C. We're going to talk to both sides of the aisle. We're going to talk to, President Trump and the administration and say, hey, let's get to a deal. There is a space for both securing our border and securing our workforce.
Yeah, I think that's got to be the effort, is it to understand that American citizens understand that if you recklessly just start to take people out of the country that are integral to this part of our economy, that there's going to be 3 legs of the stool that are going to be greatly depleted and impacted. In our market, our financial markets are going to be one of them. Our employment markets are going to be 2. And then just the safety that was the attempt isn't going to be there. So I applaud you, Rebecca. I know you're in a unique position. And as CEO of the American Business Immigration Coalition, there's a lot of work that you guys have in front of you. But I appreciate the work that you're doing and coming on our show this morning. How can folks find you? How can folks plug into the work that you're doing?
Yeah, check out our website at abic.us. That's abic.us. You can find fact sheets, latest news, sign up for our newsletter, and ways to get involved. We love to invite you and engage you, because this is something that impacts all of us. Even you don't have to be an immigrant, but if you eat food, you get health care, you live in a house, right? It's incredibly integrated, and we love to have you.
Absolutely. Rebecca, thanks for being with us this morning, and thanks for the hard work. We look forward to having you back as we keep this conversation going forward. Thanks, Rebecca, for being with us.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, Richard.
All right. Have a great day. All right, guys, we are not, what should we do? Should we take a quick break or should we not? We'll keep going. All right, we're going to keep pushing through. Thanks for Rebecca for being with us. Tough spot, tough conversation, but she's doing the work there. I know that a lot of people are saying that to her point, we can't just deport folks and expect that we're not going to pay on the back end when it comes to pricing of a lot of things, and food is certainly one of them. And her work with the Illinois farm workers and all the rest is integral to this conversation. So. All right, let's grab a couple quick calls. Let's go to Dave real quickly here in Chicago. Dave, good morning. Welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning, Richard. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I can't talk today, and on a talk show, radio show, that's kind of a tough spot to be in. So, but I'm all right, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, two quick points here. So, first point, with the budget talks that are going on, I think that the Democrats are losing a great opportunity to switch the narrative on the GOP. You know, I heard where there's, $2.5 trillion of cuts that are happening, but of course they're just going to go back out with, $4.5 trillion with tax cuts from there. You know, why are the Democrats going out there and just saying, okay, if you're going to go in and propose these cuts, then you know what, pay down the debt, right? Yeah. Use that to pay down the money. Put the Republicans on the defensive, right? Newt Gingrich them.
Yep. Thank you.
I know that
that is so.
It's changed.
Thank you. No. Keep going. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I know that, the Democrats aren't in a position of power, but it's like, do something, right? That's where people are going to have some support with you if you're saying this is what you're doing, not just saying you can't cut it. Do something, right? If Doge is saving all this money, cap the debt limit then with the money that they save.
Bingo.
Right?
That's right.
Put the money where the mouth is.
Dave, what's so important about your point is, listen, we know that they don't have the numbers, quote unquote, but they do have the ability to message, and they should be messaging every single day. Here's what the Republicans are doing. Here's why it's a problem for the country. Here's what we're doing, and here's why it's a benefit to the country. That ain't complicated. You, me, and Devin could fly to D.C., jump in front of a mic, and let that be known every single day. And I'm begging Schumer and Jeffries to take that position. That's why what Karen said earlier, we have to make sure that they know. And part of the fight for us is to let them know that. So, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
And one thing, talking about Jeffries, I was watching Rachel Maddow last night, and he was on. I actually had to turn it off because all he was talking about was policy and how they're going to have, Ruskin, the constitutional person, fight him. It's like, they don't care. They don't care what the courts say. It's like, it's like, can't you realize what's happening? They don't care. Fight them on their own terms.
Knock some tables over.
Yeah.
I hear you, Dave. I'm Karen talked about that as well earlier in the show. So, listen, man, thank you for holding, and thanks for your contribution, because I'm right there with you, and I know what you're saying. So,
thanks, Mike. Keep up the pace.
Thanks, man. Stay safe. All right,
okay,
let's go to Brock real quickly. Hey, Brock. Good morning. Welcome to Choose Views.
Thanks a lot for taking the call. Two wonderful guests. First guest, speaking of the education system. Well, the United States of America is near the bottom with our industrial counterparts, whether they're our adversaries or whether they're our friends. We need to get the 3 R's. When we get back to the 3 R's, we can then speak about all the other different programs that we have to address. But our youth are failing. They're not doing as well as youth in other countries.
Yeah.
And we need to do that, get back to basics. How does that tie into your second guest? Your second guest speaks wonderfully about the stock market potentially going down to 4 to 6%. Well, we've had a record run on the S&P 500 and as well as the Russell, 20-25%. We go down 4 to 6%. What are we down? 44,000 on the Dow Jones, down to what would we down to? 41,000? Whoop-de-doo. Whoop-de-doo. That's nothing at all. And then she speaks about farm labor, but then she intersperses into it that, our doctors and lawyers, healthcare would be affected. That's HB1V says we need to have our kids in the United States going to medical school, not bringing in people from other countries. So ultimately, we have two guests that are helping destroy America.
Okay. I hear what you're having to say, but I would take the side that from an education standpoint, we need to make sure that our citizens are educated, and the federal government wants to tear that down. I'm not down with that, Brock, ever. Never will I be down with that. And I don't think that either of those people are trying to destroy the country as much as the president that was elected, the person that was elected president. He wants to destroy this country in a far greater way than Derek Beck wants to make sure that we're properly educated, and that Rebecca wants to make sure that we've got the right people and enough of them, making sure that our farm systems and our food supply chains are operating efficiently. So I don't agree with you there. I appreciate your statement, but those two guests are not trying to tear down the country. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, the Doge boys are. So just look at the data, look at the facts. All right, Devin, let's go to our one last caller before we wrap up. Victor from the northwest side of the United States. Good morning, sir. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. How do you do, Mr. Chu?
I don't know, man. I'll have to ask you.
Okay, I would just like to say we were talking about sides and who's on what side. Yesterday, the United Nations convened 136 nations to pass a resolution to condemn Russia from attacking Ukraine. You know who voted against it? Besides Russia?
Yeah, China,
North Korea, Iran, and the United States. That's what we're fighting against. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Trump wants to be in the league of all these adversaries of the United States, the enemies of the United States. So, you know,
it's like the reinvention of the axis of powers. That's being part of that rather than being connected to the allies that have been here. Our allies and their partnership with us would have made it so that so many Americans, so many people that have migrated to the United States have the ability to be here.
And you know what else is so crazy was that Israel also voted not to condemn Russia for attacking an innocent, killing people in Ukraine, women, children. Isn't that the same thing that Hamas did in Israel?
In great measure.
How can he not condemn Russia for doing the same thing that Hamas did in Israel? That's how crazy this world is. One last thing. I would like to read a quick sentence. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and ensure the domestic tranquility, promote the general welfare, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain this Constitution for the United States of America. That was a preamble to the United States Constitution.
Yeah, and Victor, we're coming to the end of this show, man. I gotta kind of cut you off there a little bit. Great information, Vic, as always. Appreciate your call and your contribution. We got to wrap up. All right, guys, listen. The train made it to the station. Thanks for being with us today. As always, take a deep breath. Make your life count. We'll be back tomorrow.
Check up on health with Chris Whitting. Are vitamins and supplements a wise choice for your health? Dr. Nancy Snyderman, longtime medical expert for ABC and NBC TV, says maybe yes, maybe no.
The problem is one company's brand doesn't necessarily have the same active ingredient as another's. And there are always supplements that are going to be the fad of the day. But remember that it wasn't that long ago that everyone was talking about vitamin C warding off colds, which we know isn't true, vitamin A, which in too big a doses can hurt you, and even things like ephedra and tryptophan, which were hot topics, are now off the market. So if you're going to consume something that comes from your health food store, be a smart consumer and make sure you have some guidance in that store from someone who knows